Tonight, we welcome in a man that likes to say, as Jerry Seinfeld might say, where's the evidence? A writer, analyst, podcaster, and video taker for CBS Fantasy and CBS Sports. This man knows all his way around a newsletter or two. You had to feel for this Floridian having Mother Nature take a dump of snow in his first full year living in New York City. A great guy with numbers and a great guy with acronyms. This true three-sport triple threat is named Mr. Chris Towers. How's it going, man?
That's a hell of an intro. That is
for you.
Usually it's like, oh, we've got a very special guest, and then I get to do like a self-deprecating thing where it's like, oh, I'm not that special. So I still was able to do it here. I just had to, lead in myself. But no, that's a heck of an intro. I hope I don't disappoint.
No, not at all. So, the first thing I was going to ask you was, are we going to see one of your musical pets on camera? And I saw right away.
Yeah, there's David Bowie. She's the skittish one. She's a mess. She's been with us for 4 years, and she still acts like if you move wrong, you might murder her. So, yeah. Oh, and Liz Lemon is sleeping under my monitor right here. So Stevie Nicks can't be in here. He's a puppy, and he'll ruin everything.
I saw him in the snow. He seemed like he was just having a ball.
He's so excited. We have 2 glass doors to get out of our building, and as soon as he saw it, he started literally just jumping in place. As soon as he saw the snow, he gets very excited.
You've got just a full household of pets right there, man.
Yeah, it's a lot. My wife's going out of town next week, and there's a lot of concern about whether they're all going to get fed during the week. So I'm a little forgetful. So it's gonna be real interesting. It's gonna be an interesting week.
Oh man, I hope we talk to you on Monday and they're still alive.
I think they'll make. I think it's been like 2 years since I've been alone, and we've added a pet since then. So we'll see.
I'll tweet at you next week and ask how the pets are going.
Everybody just remind me, 8:30 in the morning, send me a tweet. Hey, feed the pets. 6:00 at night, Chris, feed the pets, and we'll get through this together.
I love that. So, but also before we dive in here, I didn't know you do basketball too, because I don't know if I heard you ever do basketball. At least since I've followed you in the show and all that.
That was how I started at CBS. It's been almost 10 years now, and my first 3 or 4 years, I was the main basketball guy. Less so lately. I do miss it. I do I miss just watching every NBA game. I used to work the night shift 5 to 2 a.m. and just watch all of the NBA for that whole time. I miss that, but baseball and football are, I think, a little easier to analyze for fantasy. So I don't miss that part, I guess.
The people that are announced right before the game that they're resting for load management and
yeah, and just the NBA, it's got a lot of weirder names too.
Yeah.
So it's I had to teach myself how to spell Antetokounmpo, and I remember there was this guy Donatas Motiejunas. That's a pull from 8 years ago on the Rockets.
So Sarunas Jasikevičius, that would have been a tough one to spell.
Which one?
Sarunas Jasikevičius, old Pacers guard.
Oh yeah. No, that's the Eastern European names are tougher. So I think that's one. It's just I'm unfamiliar with the consonant combinations. That's the real thing with the basketball names.
Hey man, well, we're glad we have you for baseball tonight, because we need that Chris Towers hard-hitting analysis as we dive into this SP preview part 2 here, and looking at the ADP from NFBC from January 1st on, looking in that 31 to 60 range, and talking about guys you like in each range and guys that you're kind of giving that stink face to and just are full of empty promises. You'd rather not touch them if you have to. So without further ado, why don't we just dive right in here? And Chris, who in that 31 to 40 range in a lot of your drafts have you been trying to be I got to get as much of this guy as I can?
This is generally, I think, one of my favorite ranges of the draft. And so there's quite a few. I've drafted a bunch of Zach Wheeler, a lot of Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke might actually, see, this is a question. NFC ADP is what we're going off, right?
Correct.
So 31 through 40, he's got a couple of relievers in there. So is Zach Greinke part of the 31 to 40 group, or is he 41 to 50? Because he's 41 here.
So Cheesecake, who's on the top corner there.
Yeah.
He said you need to send Chris Towers this list And I said, I don't want to like make it too confusing because it's not going to match the list on the site. So I said, let's just go basic. That always is the better way to go. But you're right. It shouldn't have all of the names in that list.
Yeah.
Kind of how it's
Well,
presented.
David doesn't know which ones are relievers and which ones are starters, so I can understand why he would have trouble with a list. But I simplified. I took all the relievers out and gave it to him. But he said,
Yeah, I mean, my sense is like there's probably only like 4 or 5 relievers so far in this range. So I would think we're mostly okay. So I'm going to go with Zach Greinke's the boring choice. And when it comes to fantasy baseball, I tend to like boring because the industry as a whole, well, like Zach Greinke's the number 41 pitcher. So I think that kind of makes the argument for me. Like we have seen some signs of decline, but we're still talking about Zach Greinke. And the last time Zach Greinke was a significant disappointment for fantasy, I think there was 1 year towards the end of his Dodgers tenure. And other than that, we're like eight years in a row of Zach Greinke basically being one of the best pitchers in fantasy. Yes, he's old. Yes, he doesn't throw hard. Yes, you have to go through the first start of spring training where he maxes out at 84 miles per hour and then says, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to throw a baseball again, which is a yearly Zach Greinke ritual. But at the end of the day, he's usually pretty good for a low to mid 3s ERA, great whip, and good bulk. You know, he's not going to be an 11K per 9 guy, but he's going to get you close to 200 Ks because he's going to throw a lot of innings too.
No, I agree. I mean, it's like you said, maybe not the sexy pick, but sometimes the non-sexy guys do need some love too. Doc, what about you? What are you looking at in this range?
So for me, I really like Charlie Morton. This is a guy from 2017 to 2019. He went 45 and 16. He averaged 169 innings pitched, a 3.24 ERA. There's the Yasikevicius spelling right there, and close to 11 Ks per 9. He was actually third in the Cy Young voting in 2019. 2020, he had right shoulder inflammation, and I think we saw that with a lot of pitchers that were ramping up their arm. I think I heard a stat from another podcast, maybe it was Spore that said it, that like 45% of pitchers got hurt at some capacity last year, and you have to figure that it especially affects the older guys. But he still had his lowest home runs per 9 inning, which was 0.95, and close to 10 Ks per 9. He's in a new division where the batters haven't seen him yet. I think there's a little bit of redemption as well. He started his career with the Braves, and he went 4-8 with a 6.15 ERA. So if you're into those storyline, bits to have a redemption story, I think Charlie Morton's your guy, and I really like the range he's in.
Chris, I didn't tell you before the show, anytime you want to disagree with the doc, like we are all here for, I would love you just to take his opinion down and just squash it. So
no, I'm with him. I'm a Charlie Morton guy, and that's another, he's old. And so I've kind of come around on, I used to be a little bit of an ageist for fantasy, but I think we tend to cycle through guys a little too quickly. And in Charlie Morton's case, it's 38 bad innings. And really, he was pretty great in the postseason. And so, I think it was one, maybe 2 starts, but it's a sign that he wasn't necessarily finished. And you've got the track record there of him being really basically a top 12 pitcher per start over the course of 3 years. And yes, he is old. He is 37 years old, but he was 34 or 33 through 36 or 32 through 35 when he was really good. And so it's not like we haven't seen him pitch well when he's older. So no, I'm right there with you. My philosophy on 2020 is it's not entirely to ignore it, but I'm definitely ignoring it more than most seem to be. And so like the big 2020 breakouts, I'm fading pretty hard. The guys who were bad in 2020, some of them are going to just be bad, but I have not looked, but I'm sure if you looked at Charlie Morton's game log over the course of those last 3 years and you just did 9 start chunks, you would find a 9 start chunk that was much worse than what he did last season. And since that 9 start chunk was his entire season, we kind of naturally, I understand why we do it, but we tend to put more significance on that than I think there necessarily should be.
do you like doing the rolling average where you just kind of like lump that in to kind of just roll it to 162, or you said like completely just not at all?
I think there's value in that, but obviously we're talking about the end of the 2019 season through the start of the 2020 season was 9 months, I think. And so, it is possible that Charlie Morton did just lose it. I don't want to discount that possibility. It is entirely possible that in between the end of the 2019 season and the end of 2020 season, he just lost it. But still a healthy number of strikeouts, still pretty good control. It's not like he really got, hit significantly harder than we've seen in the past. So I think for the most part, that's one where I'm okay saying I'll give him a bit of a mulligan for last year. And he was someone who was a top 10 starting pitcher for me last year.
That's fair. No, I think that's a good point. Cheesecake, why don't you hop in here? And who's your guy in this range that you're kind of targeting?
Well, Pablo Lopez, who's going to be 25 on opening day, put in a really good 2020. But one of the things that I really like about Pablo, and to talk about being a little bit conservative, to talk about some of the less interesting, more boring measurements, Pablo Lopez has thrown over 100 innings in 2000, over 140 in 2017, over 120 in both 2018 and 19. Pablo Lopez has shown that he can put those innings on. I don't see any reason the Marlins would really restrict his innings in 2021. And he came in last season and he had a 17.1 K- walk rate, which is very good. His ERA was 3.61. His expected ERA was 3.28 and his SIERA was 3.98. I'm not 100% sure on the figuring out of those two particular measurements, but neither of those are too scary to me. And then you look at his StatCast from 2020, and the guy was elite. He was red all over the place. He was what did you call him, David?
When they're all red?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just say that a bull would hate looking at their page.
A bull would hate looking at Pablo's page. So I think, based on the fact that I don't think he's going to have any innings limitations, I don't see any issue with him going over 150 innings. And the fact that the Marlins have a really good track record with their pitching, at least over the past year or two, make me like Lopez. He's actually going a little bit, I think, later than he had been going in like October or November. So that's also something that I'm liking.
I feel like a lot of people are either team low or team alta. Alta is tall, right, in Spanish? Does anybody know?
I should know this. I'm half Puerto Rican and I'm
So
married to a
I think
Venezuelan,
Bajo is short. I think Bajo is short.
And alta is tall. So I was going to make a joke that if you're team Pablo, you get low, or team alta, team Alcantara, maybe that's not too much of a stretch. But I feel
both.
like yeah,
I am a Marlins fan, and so I hope I'm not. I think anybody who follows me would realize that I'm not the kind of Marlins fan who likes them very much. I tend to be pretty fatalistic, and so I don't think I overrate them too much. I just think all three of those guys, you throw in Sixto Sanchez, I think all three of those guys are just really good, and they're all pretty much going in this range. Maybe Pablo's is he a little behind them? No, I guess he's a little ahead.
Yeah.
But they're within 6 spots on the pitcher ranks, and I like all of them. I think my mic just cut out for a second. I think the cat stepped on a button. I like all of them.
That's
I think
alive.
they all bring things to the table, and it's kind of interesting, especially Sixto and Sandy, who we may talk about later. I don't know if they're on your guys' list, but they are really good at suppressing hard contact. And Pablo he hasn't demonstrated that ability quite as well, but he was really, really good at last season in particular. So I think the Marlins are going to have a pretty good rotation. It's the rest of the team may not be so good.
I'm still trying to figure out how they defend that Zach Gallen trade. I think we already knew how good he was. I can tell it's a sore subject.
There are so many. Like, the thing is, it's not the worst or most inconceivable Marlins trade of a pitcher within the last 5 years, because
Chris Paddock for Fernando Rodney.
Well, I believe they traded Chris Paddock twice. I believe the first time sorry. it was either Luis Castillo, who they traded for Dan Straley. I think, okay, Luis Castillo, they traded twice. Once for Colin Ray, I believe, San Diego Padres pitcher. That was the one that got canceled because the Padres lied about his physicals. And so they got him back and then traded him for Dan Straley. But Chris Paddock, they traded for Fernando Rodney, who had a .91 ERA after 2 months of baseball. And this was like 2014, and the Marlins are apparently the only organization in baseball who didn't realize that you don't pay for 2 good months of Fernando Rodney because he's Fernando Rodney.
He was still like 40 at that time.
Yeah, he was. Like 39 or 40. It was like Chris Paddock, I think, had just thrown like 3 straight no hitters or something in a row too.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. How about I get some good talking here, talking about Zach Wheeler, who I feel like you like. Yeah. And one of the things I really like about him, and again, maybe there's something I miss that you can touch on as well. I saw he drastically decreased his launch angle, had a career best. It was actually 3.8 degrees. So he's not getting up a lot of fly balls. And it was actually almost 9 degrees lower than the year before. 3 home runs the entire year off of him. His ground ball percentage went up to nearly 56%, which was 12% higher than 2019. He also seemed that he really, I think you mentioned before about limiting hard contact. He had elite average exit velocity that got even better, and it was in the top 10 percentile in the league. His sweet spots percentage shot down 4%. X slug went from 405 down to 350. And I think a lot of things had to do with the evolution of his sinker. And he used that sinker nearly 24% of the time and bumped it up. But the result was a 68-point decrease in batting average against. And it just seemed like he kind of had a nice little mix. His strikeouts went down. Is the one thing I guess you could be a little concerned about. It seemed that his new approach didn't allow him to miss as many bats, but he kept that ball on the ground and his numbers were just incredible. What do you think, Chris? Are you kind of on the board with the same kind of thing here? He's
a little boring, but he's boring in, a similar way to Jose Barrios, who I think everyone has kind of come around on as it's not gonna happen. The like ace leap that we were hoping for Jose Barrios, and he's kind of, I think, moved into a range where I'm more comfortable drafting him. But what you like about both of those guys is pretty good control. And both, when they're right, they go consistently deep into games. And, Wheeler last year was such a dramatic change in his approach, the strikeout rate collapsing, the ground ball rate going way up. I think you probably expect a little bit of regression in both ways, but he's been a fairly, it's kind of weird at this point in Zach Wheeler's career. He's kind of been like a consistent, kind of boring pitcher, but someone who you can rely on, which is not who he was early on in his career. He had a lot of trouble staying healthy. He had a lot of trouble staying consistent. But I think at this point, it helps that I think the re-signing of Didi Gregorius, I think adding him last offseason really helped him with that ground ball rate. He's a very good defensive shortstop, and I think re-signing him helps as well.
No, 100%. I don't like to do this, but we're going to have to get negative for a second, and we're going to have to go to the other side of the coin here. And guys in this range that you have a lot of questions about, you're not going to draft. Chris, I have a guy on here that I'm going to save for the end because I think we might differ on it. But why don't you start off with your guy first of who you really do not want to touch here?
I mean, Dylan Bundy. This is... I was a Dylan Bundy guy back in the day, like when he first came back from all the injuries, and then that one offseason where it's like I rediscovered my slider. I think it was a slider cutter combination he still throws, and it's a very good pitch, and he threw it a lot more last season. I think that's the reason why a lot of people are willing to buy in. But it's Dylan Bundy, and it's like 65 innings of Dylan Bundy, and I understand that. This is the kind of thing where if you take what he did last season at face value, there is a lot to like. A very good strikeout rate, although, 27% strikeout rate, 9.87 per 9. It's very good, but it's not elite. And we're basically looking at a career low home run to fly ball ratio that was half of what it was the year before. Moving out of Camden Yards helps, moving out of the AL East helps, but we're still talking about 11 starts where his home run rate was lower than it ever has been. I just think there's way too much to be skeptical about with Dylan Bundy. If I could get him as, an SP5 or lower than that, I think it's fine because you're going to get some good starts. You're going to get a lot of strikeouts, but I can't buy in for a guy who's been that inconsistent and frankly, prone to really, really big blowups in the past. It's putting way too much weight on the short season. And at the end of last season, everyone was saying we're not going to put too much weight on 2020. And, we're drafting Dylan Bundy as a, top, 35 starting pitcher. It's too rich for my blood.
I feel like he's that shiny new toy. Everybody's like, oh, he changed his approach and, he's out of the Baltimore organization away from the AL East. And I feel like that's all the appeal that everybody's kind of looking at, like you're saying.
And there's like I said, there are things to like about him. It's just you're paying. There are so many examples of over a full season, guys having one great year and then not being able to back it up. And if he had done this over a full season, I think I would still be a little bit skeptical. And we're talking about, he did it over 11 starts. So that's kind of one thing that I'm struggling with a lot this year, though, is like Zach Plesac's another guy that I'm very skeptical of. I don't necessarily have a good statistical argument against him. I can't say, well, you look at his BABIP and they're just like, if you take what those guys did, Zach Plesac, Dylan Bundy, at face value, what they did was awesome and is worth what you're going to pay to get them this year. But for me, it just comes back to it's the small sample size, and you over the long run, you will never go broke betting against an outlier performance in an 11-game sample. I think is the best way to phrase it. You're going to miss sometimes, and you might miss on Zach Plesac, and you might miss on Dylan Bundy, and you might look like an idiot. But, let's think back to Trevor Bauer coming off his, first Cy Young caliber season. That was a much larger sample size than either of these two, and he was pretty bad the following season.
I think ultimately you have to stick with your guns, and it's like you can't let what everybody else is saying. If you really believe in your process, you believe in, hey, this guy isn't what I think everybody else is, then you don't want to give in to what everybody else is doing, because that's not how you're going to win, right? So I respect that. And like you said, it's just because if Zach Plesac has something that stands out, you can't argue against it, doesn't mean that you need to take him. So
sometimes guys just get hot. And I think one thing that the StatCast revolution and all this, new data that we have can kind of hide that, sometimes guys just play better than they are. And we're comfortable with it when a guy has a 400 BABIP. And we can look at it and say, well, okay, he probably overperformed his batting average by 50 points. We're less comfortable with it when a guy had a really, really high average exit velocity, way higher than he's ever had for his career, because we say, well, we're measuring skill here. We're not measuring results. We're not measuring outcomes. We're measuring how hard the guy hit the ball, and you can't fake that. And that is true. But sometimes you just get hot. Sometimes everything's clicking for you and you're throwing a mile per hour faster in a way that's not sustainable. And I think that's one thing that we struggle with over a full season, and I think is really hard in a shortened sample size like we're dealing with.
I want to ask you, because the guy I have, and then I'll let Cheesecake and Doc chime in here. The guy I have, Sixto Sanchez, who I know you talked about, you were very high on. I feel like he's everybody talking about Dustin May, and he was kind of the gift king, and that everybody just fell in love with the videos, but he actually wasn't as effective. And I was kind of getting similar vibes from him in the sense, you see all the gifts, the videos, is 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, but the reality that he was under league average in K percentage. His sinker, he throws a lot, and it stinks, not necessarily from the batting average standpoint, but he doesn't get any swing and misses on it. He only has that really good changeup, but in terms of run value, that was the only pitch that actually had a positive run value for it. So there were some things there that kind of were a little scary to me. Are you, with Sixto Sanchez, do you fully believe what you saw last year is kind of what he's going to be?
I think his most likely outcome is like a Jose Barrios kind of season, where it's like a 3.75 ERA, good whip, pitches deep into games. I think with him, you do still have pretty significant workload concerns. And I think if you were going to move him down, that would be the biggest reason why. I think his career high in innings is 114 or something in that range. And the Phillies were super careful with him. He had some elbow issues, I think, in 2018, the year before the Marlins traded for him. The Marlins have been super careful with him. But I think he actually, here's a comp that I think might work better. I think he can be Kyle Hendricks in like a kind of median outcome. And obviously where he, can take a big leap forward is if, he stops throwing that sinker quite as much and he, uses the four seam and elevates that more and uses the slider more and uses that changeup more as a put away pitch. He's never been the kind of strikeout guy that you think he should be based on, the scouting reports, watching him. But in the minors, he was more like a 23 to 24% strikeout rate, most seasons than 21% last season. His K per nine has always been really, really low because he's been such an efficient pitcher. Low whips and in low inning samples can really skew K per nine. But I think he's someone who can be, a slightly above average strikeout rate pitcher. And obviously, if there's a tweak in his arsenal, I think there's, monster ace upside there. That's the biggest thing. So I think he's kind of safe with the upside as well.
Okay. No, I like that. I think it's hard for me. Like you said, I think the biggest thing is the innings and that these young guys are probably not going to get the benefit of the doubt as far as a big innings increase. And so that where he's going, that's going to be a little bit the troubling part. But you touched on that. So I think people will understand that when they draft him. Cheesecake, why don't you hop in here next? Give us your guy, and then let's see what Chris kind of feels about how you're feeling with this guy.
It was either Sun Tzu or Chris Towers who said, you won't go broke betting against a short sample size. And I think it was Sun Tzu. And the guy who I'm talking about and the short sample size I'm talking about is the short sample size of health that Jesus Luzardo showed in 2020. In the 3 full seasons, 17, 18, and 19, mind you, there was no pandemic in those seasons. He put together 207 total innings. That's under 70 innings per season. His high was 109, and he went 43 and 55 in the other 2. In 2020, he made 9 starts, pitched in 12 games, pitched 59 innings. That was basically a full season. However, it was a full season in the 2020 context. We didn't get to see it followed up. I have a lot of concerns for his workload. And I also have some concerns because his home run per fly ball really spiked in 2020, especially when he was starting. His home run per fly ball is the highest. It was the highest rate of his career. And, so I think that there is a potential that he might have some more home run per fly ball concerns as well. Now, the projection systems all have him at like 150 to 160 innings, except for the Zips projection system, which has him for 112. And I think 112 is really, that's about as good as I would project for Jesus Luzardo season coming up. Even if you want to say, oh, he can build up from his previous high, you're talking about maybe 130 innings. That's 20 innings more than his previous high. And that a guy you're picking in the top 100 overall picks, he's your 3rd starter. I just can't see spending that sort of draft capital on someone who I don't think is going to come close to 150 innings pitched. So I'm fading Jesus Luzardo.
What did you say his last name was?
Jesus Luzardo.
You did this last week too. I'm not going to let you get a pat. Luzardo. No,
that's all right. That's all right. On Fantasy Baseball Today, Scott White is like, I can't. First of all, I can't talk because I can't pronounce anything correct. We got like 15 like annoyed tweets from Blue Jays fans because we didn't know how to pronounce Dunedin. I still don't know wherever they play their spring training site. I can't pronounce anything.
Yeah,
but Scott White still has trouble with Justin Verlander. So
I never miss. What does he say? I never.
He says Verlander. It's very strange. He does it like once, like a season. He'll just like, and it's always. I've never understood. So, but also, I can't pronounce anyone's names right. So don't. I feel a little bad actually, even bringing up Scott.
Well, I mean, Frank too, because Frank goes Annings.
Oh yeah, but that's a region. I think Frank's just got a weird accent.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we had him on. No, he plays. It's funny because he's just cool with it, so it's not like it's a sensitive subject. Doc, why don't you give your guy real quick too, and we can move on to the next category here.
Yeah, Kristen, you and I are doing a virtual high five, fist bump, whatever you want to do, because we both like Dylan. We both dislike Dylan Bundy. And it was actually a good first third of the season because his first 4 starts, he went 28.2 innings pitched, had a 1.6 ERA with 35 Ks. But you look over the last 7, he pitched 37 innings. He had a 4.62 ERA with 37 Ks. His average fastball velocity dropped to 90 miles per hour, which is the lowest of his career. Shout out to Alex Fast for this stat. Bundy threw 119 curveballs in 2020. It was the only curveball to have a called strike percentage above 40%. 8 were put in play and 0 were hits. I don't see him repeating that. And you talk about his career ERA because he played in Camden Yards. Well, he actually had a lower ERA at home, 4.48, than he did on the road, 4.62. So it's not even like the drastic home road splits like you see Colorado pitchers have.
That's always a tough thing with like the players who play in an extreme environment because most players tend to perform better at home anyway. So I think that kind of highlights just that he wasn't very good. You know, it wasn't just that he pitched in Camden Yards. I think it's just for most of his career, Dylan Bundy has been a guy who will occasionally flash. He'll occasionally get a lot of swinging strikes. He'll occasionally have that slider working. But more often than not, he's just getting hit really, really hard. And the home park doesn't change that all that much.
I really hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him on the show.
I mean,
one of these days.
I've always this is the thing that's always tough about fantasy sports is like, I was really like I was rooting for him coming back. I remembered him being like this, like once in a generation prospect, kind of like Lucas Giolito, where, you know, for a long time he was, you know, this Julio Urias, another guy, just came up super young, had a huge pedigree and just couldn't stay healthy. And I'll always root for guys like that. It always does make me feel a little weird about fantasy sports when we have to like, this guy sucks.
Just poop on him.
Sure, he tries really hard.
He has a great mustache, so we'll give him a compliment.
Oh, there you go. And end with a nice compliment. Let's move to the 41 to 50 range now. We got a whole new group of guys to look at here. Chris, who in this range is someone that just catches your eye?
I don't want to go with another boring old guy, but Patrick Corbin.
Oh, we're gonna disagree. Yes, I love it.
I'm hopping in this too.
You know, a lot like Charlie Morton. He's actually fallen even further than Charlie Morton. Patrick Corbin was I think a top 6 or top 7 starter in ADP last season. And yes, he's old, but he's only 31 years old. So it's not like Charlie Morton where he's in that danger area. Yes, the velocity was down, but I remember in 2018 when he had, you know, the big breakout, I kept saying, you know, Patrick Corbin, he was throwing hard early on the season. I think he was averaging like 92 miles per hour with his fastball the first month. And then there was this one start where it dropped like 2 miles per hour. And it's like, oh boy, that's a big red flag. And then it didn't matter. And he kept pitching awesome because he had that awesome slider. Maybe he just doesn't have the feel for the slider anymore. Or maybe he's lost enough velocity where it matters now. But this is another one where I just think you've got the track record. It's shorter with him. It was only the 2 really, really good seasons, but I'm willing to give him a mulligan for the fact that he pitched so poorly because he still, you know, had good control. The ground ball rate dropped a little bit, but it wasn't like this huge, you know, drastic drop. I just kind of think it was just like a weird 11 starts, and this is going to be a recurring theme. It's hard to tell who just had a weird season in the weirdest circumstances that any of these guys have ever played in and who actually lost or gained something. But I'm going to be fairly consistent, and I'm going to say that the guys who have the track record, I'm still going to buy. Especially in Corbin's case when it's a 35 spot difference in the starting pitcher rankings. Or
So
30 probably.
let me ask you this. If he goes out in spring training and he's topping out at 90 again, is that going to concern you? Because I think we can probably both agree that velocity is going to be the biggest thing with him. And if his velocity is still down, his slider is probably not going to be nearly as effective. Is that like one of those things, if you see that in spring training, you're going to change it? Or you're more like, you know what, I'm not worried about the velocity if it's still down?
Maybe. It's always tough because, sometimes we're comparing, what a reporter saw on someone's gun while they were watching the game because the pitch effects wasn't, up that day. Or this is always the tough thing. Like, he was sitting 90. Well, does that mean he was sitting, like he was hitting 90 more often than not? Or was he like, I always struggle with those kind of things as well. Generally speaking, spring training doesn't change my perception too much, but if we do get out in spring training and, he does play, make his first 3 starts are in front of the Hawkeye cameras and we see, he is averaging 89 miles an hour, then yeah, I'll change my position a little bit, but he's not someone who needs to throw 93 to be successful. He averaged 90.8 in 2018. He averaged 90.2 in 2020. I don't know. It's possible that a guy who's just really a 2-pitch pitcher, just the margin of error is that slim. But I don't know. I'm willing to bet on it when the price is this low. Especially when you look at the guys, who are going in his range at starting pitcher. You're talking about, guys with significant innings concerns like Frankie Montas, or significant performance concerns like German Marquez. Marco Gonzalez, another super boring guy who I actually like a lot because he's consistently pretty good and nobody wants him. But when Patrick Corbin's going around 50 at starting pitcher, I just, that feels like a good opportunity to buy.
No, I won't argue that. I personally probably won't be drafting him, but you're right. It's not like you have to pay a lot to get him. So if he's not great, you didn't spend a ton of great draft capital on him. So
your assumption at that point, 140th overall pick, your assumption, especially if it's a pitcher, is that he's probably not going to be very good.
Yeah. So I can't disagree with you there. If you take a chance on him, it doesn't hurt too much. Doc, I'm just going to skip you because I'm pretty sure that you kind of touched the Patrick Corbin enough. Is that fair to say?
That's who I dislike.
No, I know. I'm saying I feel like we touched on the velocity. Is there some major stat you want to throw in here?
I think the decline began in the 2019 MLB playoffs. He went 2-3 with a 5.79 ERA, a 1.42 WHIP. The only redeeming thing was he had 13.9 Ks per 9. But if you actually look last year, that dropped to 8.2. He allowed 85 hits, which was the most in the MLB. And really, besides that 2018 season, he's been an average pitcher. His xERA has been 4+ every year and over 5 2 out of the last 6 years. And really, the only reason he had decent stats is because the Nats let him pitch. So his last 3 of his 4 starts versus Atlanta, 5.1 innings, 9 hits, 5 earned. Against the Marlins, 6 innings pitched, 14 hits, 7 earned. And against the Mets, 7 innings pitched, 10 hits, 3 earned. They gave him a 6-year, $140 million extension. That was his second year of it. So I think they needed to play him to make it not look like a bad signing. But I don't like him going into, even for this price. And as a Nats fan, it's pain for me to say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, the one thing you do bring up there that I think is relevant is he's in the 3rd year of his contract of a 6-year deal. So they're not going to not let him pitch, even if it's maybe a long reliever. I could see them still trying to do anything if they have him do follow a opener, whatever it could take to make him be able to accumulate innings for them. Cheesecake, let's go to you and let's finish this part out. What about you?
No, I just want to touch upon Marco Gonzalez, who Chris brought up just now as another boring guy who people are sleeping on a little bit. Marco's been pretty good since about 2018. He pitched over 160 innings, pardon me, in 2018. He pitched over 200 innings in 2019. His WOBA in both of those seasons was 311. So it's not like he was like 2020, which was better. It's not like that was out of nowhere. 311 WOBA is pretty good. That's something you can take to the bank. And so I think that you can count on Marco to be going out there and being pretty solid, and I think he's going to get you innings. He upped his strikeout percentage to a career high in 2020. I'm not going to say that he's going to post a 23% K percentage and a 2.5% walk percentage, but if he's around 5 walk percentage and 20% K percentage, you're still getting a 15% K minus walk rate. Not that elite strikeout rate, but an elite walk rate, kind of like a Kyle Hendricks, who everyone loves to compare players to. But going at this range, are you really going to find another guy who you can think is going to go pitch 180 innings and give you these sort of ratios? I don't think there are that many at this point, so I'm scooping up a lot of Marco Gonzalez.
Sounds like you were on that same page, Chris.
Yeah, he's someone that I kind of like every year, and this is the first time that he's really being drafted where I think he should be. But he's also someone who can fall to like the 180 range in draft because he's just, there are a lot more guys you can talk yourself into going after him. You can talk yourself into, a Tyler Mahle or an Aaron Savale or, these kind of younger, sexier names where I guess Marco Gonzalez is probably only like 25 or 26. He pitches like an old guy. And there's going to be, I think Marco Gonzalez is probably going to be the kind of pitcher who has a fairly steep decline. We compare these guys to Kyle Hendricks, and Kyle Hendricks is a freak. Like there just aren't a lot of guys who can pitch like Kyle Hendricks does as long as Kyle Hendricks has, but you can do it for 4 or 5 years before, you really start to lose those margins. So I like Marco Gonzalez. He's never someone I go out of my way to draft, but I'll end up with him on a pretty significant number of my teams.
So I'm curious to finish this segment out for the like in the 41 to 50 range. Your thoughts on Kevin Gausman, who I think everybody talks about that sexy split finger as they should. I mean, I could read the stats on that pitch, but it would just be wasting time. We all know it's good. But I'm kind of looking a little bit more under the hood in that researching a little bit. I wrote an article on Kevin Gausman, and I saw that a lot of this change actually was dating back to the Cincinnati bullpen. And when he added the vertical depth, which he added actually 0.9 inches of drop above average on that pitch, is kind of what opened things up. And he had, I mean, again, if you look across the numbers, all his numbers were great. But I look at the whiff rates, and his 12.4 K per 9 was 4th in all of the majors. His 15.7% swing and miss rate was 5th in all of baseball. But then besides the strikeout stuff, the O contact, his O contact was the 3rd best in baseball, and his 47.2% O contact was only behind Jacob deGrom and Shane Bieber, which was nuts to me. He seems like he's really limiting contact outside the zone, and he just seems like he's a different pitcher beyond the split finger. And one of the things kind of looking into his splits too, he faced 115 lefties and 111 righties. So he pretty much actually, and that would help because in the NL West, there's so many lefty hitters. Half his home runs came against lefties. Half his home runs came against righties. He struck out 39 lefties to 40 right-handed hitters. His averages against lefties were 217 to 225 versus righties. And then you look times through the order, it was 182 the first time, 258 the second time, and 237 the third time. So he just seems like he's an incredibly consistent pitcher. So, Chris, I was just curious, are you in the camp of, hey, if that splitter's not there, I don't think he's the guy? Or are you more like, I see other things there that shows that this breakout was a real thing?
Oh, if the splitter's not there, he's not the guy. I think that's unquestioned. I mean, that's been the story of Kevin Gausman's entire career, and that he's kind of like a white whale for me. I was chasing him for so long in Baltimore because it was always early on in the season he wouldn't throw the splitter. He just would not throw it. He would throw it like 5-10% of the time his first few starts, and everyone would be like, "Oh, we got bit by Kevin Gausman again." And then he would start incorporating the splitter more. He would have these really strong runs, and then we do the same thing year over year. And he actually talked about how one of the things for him in the offseason is that he has a lot of trouble with like blisters as a result of his splitter because of the way he throws it. I want to say he throws kind of like that Vulcan grip. So he kind of splits it between his ring and his middle finger, I think is the way he throws it. It's kind of a change-up splitter. But that was something that he's talked about where he basically said, I don't throw that pitch until like my last start of spring training because it just, and over the last couple of seasons, we've seen him in that 25, 28, 35% range with the splitter. He seems to be more comfortable with it. It is his, like you said, the numbers are incredible with the splitter, and they always have been. It's been by far and away his best pitch. I don't know about the run values, but my perception has always just been that that's his good pitch. He has the one good pitch, and if he can just get by to get to the point where he can throw that a lot, he's going to be pretty good. The other big thing for me here, though, is he's still going to pitch in San Francisco half the time, and that's still going to be really good for him. So I think I might like Gausman more than Bundy, actually.
Ooh, I like that. That's kind of a spicy take, but not so at the same time, because his success seems more sustainable than Bundy's, at least in my eyes. So I like that. Chris, let's go to this next range here, or stay in the same range, but let's talk about the other side. And the person that you don't like in this range, in that 41 to 50, who's that guy?
I think it's hard to dislike someone this late. I think Lance McCullers is my answer. He might technically be in the 31 to 40 range. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit and say Lance McCullers. He's 43rd overall at starting pitcher. It's probably like 38 that regular at starting pitcher, but whatever. If that's not a good enough answer, it's kind of hard to find one. I guess Dustin May, but like you said, he's pretty Sixto Sanchez-y. And the fact that he's only 56th overall at pitcher makes me think my perception of how people viewed him was wrong, because I thought he was going to be someone who would get pushed up draft boards really high. And that hasn't been the case. And I think there's the difference between him and Sixto Sanchez is there's less room for Dustin May, I think, to figure it out, because he doesn't have the arsenal that Sixto does, where Sixto has, multiple breaking balls. He's got a change up. Dustin May is kind of just the sinker cutter. And those are both pitches that are hard to get swinging strikes on. Cutter obviously will get more swinging strikes, but he seems like he's kind of destined to be a pitch to contact, low BABIP, low home run to fly ball rate, Marcus Stroman type, maybe. Whereas I do think Sixto Sanchez, it's a little easier to see tweaks around the edges where he can figure it out and become, a 10K per 9 guy. I think it's harder for Dustin May to get there. But in this range, there's not much to dislike, I think.
So then I'm curious, Dustin May's teammate, Julio Urias, who you brought up, and I mean, everything looks great. His StatCast page is all red. He's a magma man. But the thing that kind of bothers me is he's never pitched over 79 innings, has a history of injuries. You look at the rotation with Kershaw, Buehler, Price, seem like locks. You have Gonsolin, who I think fantasy baseball Twitter would erupt if he doesn't get a starting spot.
And they might add Bauer.
They're
one of the final two teams on Bauer.
So, are you worried about Urias that they just say, just F it, you're going to be a long reliever and not even give him a shot at the innings in the rotation, and that at this point that could be bad for him?
Yeah, I don't think I think it's kind of like Kenta Maeda when he was in LA, where I just don't think you're ever going to get 150 or 160 innings from him. The innings that you're going to get should be very good. He's the last couple of seasons, he's rediscovered some velocity after all the shoulder woes, and he's, a consistently mid-90s starting pitcher now. But yeah, I don't necessarily think you're ever going to be able to rely on him for even to make every turn in the rotation. I think it's going to be like Kenta Maeda, where he's going to be very good when he's in there. Maybe a little underrated for fantasy. If, one thing that I've said a lot this season is, a high impact, low innings guy is never going to be more valuable than this season in particular for fantasy, because we don't know who's going to throw 150 innings. We don't know who's going to be allowed to go 6 innings consistently. So, that's another, well, he's going a little earlier. So I guess, he's in that Lance McCullers range. I would rather have Urias. I think he's a better pitcher than McCullers, but, I think I'd probably just, I don't think there's a significant difference between Sandy Alcantara and those guys who's going a little later. So, it looks like it's a tier, and I think I'm okay just waiting to the end of the tier.
That's fair. Cheesecake, why don't you hop on here and give us your guy?
Well, I mean, I think in this range, it's not as hard for me to find guys who I'm fading, but Dustin May is someone who I'm fading, and I think that basically he ran really hot for a short stretch in 2020. He had an incredibly low BABIP against him at 234. Major league average is somewhere around 300. He had a left on base percentage of nearly 90. So you see his ERA was 2.57. I think that when you get some sort of normalization, some sort of negative regression on his BABIP and his left on base percentage, I think you're going to start seeing that climb. And he also is not, as Chris said, he's not a guy who's going to provide you with a ton of strikeouts. He's a pitch to contact guy. So I went through and, even if they don't sign Bauer, they still have 6 guys. And then they have, Jimmy Nelson in minor leagues who I'm not sure if he's going to be healthy.
I didn't know he still existed.
He's on their AAA squad, and I think he's going to be in Major League camp. They don't have quite as many arms as they have had in the past to sort of bog down these more marginal pitchers on their squad, but they still have enough to really play games like they always have been. So May is someone who I think I don't have concerns on his ability to throw 150 innings because he's thrown over 130, 17, 18, and 19. So I think 150 is well within range. I just don't think they're going to give it to him.
That's fair. Doc, why don't you just touch on this last guy and then we'll get to the last part of the players here.
Oh, the guy I disliked was Patrick Corbin. I went into plenty of detail.
Oh, that's right. All right. So you can stop talking then. Let's move to then starting pitchers 51 to 60. We're just going to touch on the guy that we like in this range because like Chris was saying in the last range, when you get to this point in the draft, it's not the price is now baked in, so you can't hate too much here. So Chris, who's the guy here in this range that you really like?
Tristan McKenzie. Love Tristan McKenzie.
Really?
I mean, I'm a little worried that like if he's standing behind like a stop sign, you may not be able to see him and he may get like left on the bus or something. He might be the skinniest person I've ever seen in my life. But he's a hell of a pitcher. I really, he's someone who, because of injuries, he got kind of forgotten. Coming into 2020, it was the first time he'd really been healthy in a couple of seasons. But, I think everything that he did last season pretty much lived up to the expectations that were put on him before the injuries. Obviously concerns about innings because of, his lack of history throwing deep innings, his history of injuries. But I think the stuff is legit. I think he's going to be really, really good when he's on the mound. And it's the Indians. You can count on Cleveland to get the most out of their starting pitchers. If you're excited about Zach Plesac, if you're excited about Aaron Savale, Tristan McKenzie is more talented than either of them, I think.
So you're firmly on the McKenzie train over the other two.
At price, for sure over Plesac. I'm not necessarily sure he'll be better than Zach Plesac, although, the numbers that he put up last season in the small sample size weren't all that much less impressive. But yeah, I do think he has more ability. This is a guy who was considered, the team's top pitching prospect for a while. And, before the injury concerns, he had thrown 143 innings in 2017. So, he has at least shown that ability in the past. I'm not necessarily sure he'll get that opportunity this year, but I think when he's on the mound, he'll be really good.
Are you worried that if he's on the mound and there's a big gust of wind, he may blow away?
It's entirely possible. They may need to make sure they get long spikes so he can really keep his footing. You want to get a firm foundation when you're building a tall, skinny building. I've been reading a lot about these tall buildings in New York City. They really have to dig deep to get the foundation. So I think that might be a similar situation there. But, that as long as a large bird doesn't pick him up, I think he'll be good.
I actually think his nickname is Sticks too, which is pretty funny.
Did he? No, it wasn't him. There was a football player who it was Devontae Smith who agreed that people could call him the Slim Reaper, and that was always the nickname people wanted to use on Kevin Durant, and he said he doesn't want them to.
Yeah, Durant doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it, which is ridiculous. It's an incredible name. So if Devontae Smith, if it doesn't catch on for him, Tristan McKenzie, it's an awesome nickname.
There we go.
Tristan McKenzie's nickname is String Bing, by the way.
No, I'm pretty sure
that makes sense. Either one.
Yeah, well, they both work. Doc, we'll stay with you. Give us your guy.
So for me, it's Tony Gonsolin, and I think you spoke. If he doesn't start, fantasy Twitter will erupt. His 2019 season, which he wasn't rookie eligible, he went 4-2 with a 2.93 ERA, 1.02 WHIP, less than a home run per 9 innings, and he got even better in 2020. He was 2-2, so the record wasn't as good, but 2.31 ERA, a .836 WHIP, and a .4 home run per 9. He actually gave up only 2 for the year, improved his K per 9. The one thing you worry about him is the rotation spot with David Price coming back as well for this season. So I think that's why his ADP is a little bit low, but not based on his production.
But how about this? You use a 3rd round pick on Clayton Kershaw. You use a 10th round pick on Julio Urias. You use a 14th on Dustin May. You use a 15th on or 16th on David Price. You use an 18th on Tony Gonsolin. All of a sudden, you got like a 3.2 ERA and 10K per 9 for like nothing. This is something that I've suggested in the past, and I think it's always a viable strategy. If you want to go 2 aces, Buehler and Kershaw, and just don't draft another pitcher for like 8 rounds, you can end up with a pretty good staff of just Dodgers.
You know that they're going to get run support and a ton of wins.
Right,
so
they're going to get a ton of wins. The ratios are going to be great. You'll need to pick up innings, but if you're streaming guys when those guys are out of the rotation, you can end up with 6 really, really good pitchers out of the Dodgers. I think it's a totally viable strategy.
Have you ever used that strategy ever in any of your drafts?
Yeah, this was probably 2019. I did it a couple times, and it works out because the reasons why they're all undervalued individually is why they're all so good collectively. I think they're never going to get tired. You're always going to have, if you have 6 of them, you're probably going to have 5 of them in the rotation at all times. And even if Julio Urias is just pitching relief, if you're getting, 6 really good innings from him every week, there are worse things in the world.
If only you could pick team rotations. Like you just get all the Dodgers starters.
They'd be the number 1 pick, right? Like every year they have like a 3-1 team.
I don't know. I might pick Indians. Maybe not this year, but in years past.
Yeah.
Or baseball team. The baseball team.
Yeah. Cleveland.
So it's like you have team defenses in football, you have team pitching staffs in baseball.
Team QBs in football. Yeah. I think it's a fun idea.
It's an interesting strategy. And then you see how high they would go. I actually kind of like that idea.
Let's bring it up to CBS.
There we go.
I think you can actually do that in a commissioner league. I think there is an option.
Is it really?
I think so.
Oh, wow. I love this. Great ideas just flowing. Cheesecake, speaking of ideas, who's a good idea to draft here?
Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin to me is someone who showed in 2020. I buy in to some of the improvements because they come after a pitch mix change. He switched from throwing his sinker under 20% of the time to throwing it over 50% of the time. He stopped throwing his 4-seamer. He used to throw it 30, 33, 34% of the time. Now he's throwing it under 10% of the time. And what happened? The launch angle went down on his pitches. Wow, you throw more sinkers, the launch angle goes down. What do you know? He was giving up less home runs. He's giving up less hard hit. The one thing that's really interesting is his K percentage went way up. Way up. I don't buy he's going to go all the way up to that 20, 28, 29% K percentage that he showed in 2020. But I do buy that he's going to keep some of that gain. If he stays above 25, his really strong walk rate that he's shown ever since he came in, he's going to be 17 or 18% K minus walk rate. I think Philadelphia has done a good job. We talked about Wheeler earlier. You could talk about Nola at the top of that staff. They do a good job with their pitchers of getting them through the season. Eflin threw over 150 innings in 2019 also. So I think that he's primed to throw 160, 170, have that good strikeout rate, pitch for a good team. And I think he's moving up draft boards now. He was going way past 200 before, but But I think he's still a very good value wherever you can get him, because I think he's good innings at above league average pitching.
That's fair. Chris, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Mr. Tyler Mahle, who I feel like everybody wants morally of Tyler Mahle. I mean, that slider, unreal since he incorporated that slider back in. And it seems while he paired that slider, he figured out a good formula with going slider fastball against righties, and he went split finger more against lefties to set up his slider. And it didn't hurt that he added 3 mile per hour increase on that slider from 2018 when he last used it. But I mean, the whiff percentages were crazy. Is it kind of like the Gosman thing? If he's going to throw his slider that much, is it like you're 100% in on Tyler Mahle?
I think so. He's someone who I think has had, I remember when he came up as a prospect, he was kind of viewed as a, kind of low upside guy. And then he got to the majors, and I thought his stuff actually was a little better than the scouting reports gave him credit for. The results were never there, but I think this is actually him and Zach Eflin. I think Paul Mamino, who works, he used to work with Fantrax. He's with Roto Fanatics now. He has a stat called Stuff Plus that we used to publish on CBS up until the 2020 season. And Eflin and Mahle last year were both guys who rated really well by that metric. And it's basically it's basically just attempting to quantify the quality of the pitcher's stuff without necessarily getting into the results. The results play a part in it, but also it incorporated some control aspects of it as well. And both those guys rated out really well. And so I think there's more there than the career rates would make you think. Mahle, it is more of a harder cutter than a typical slider. I think he did make that change, but the Reds are, they're one of the teams that's worked really closely with the Driveline Baseball guys. One of them, I think is the pitching coordinator for the team. And so I think that, Mahle could be a guy who's really benefiting from the, kind of putting under a microscope kind of changes that those guys can make.
Agreed. I mean, I think everybody's kind of salivating at what they're seeing from him, and he seems like he's really figured it out. So I think he'll be highly drafted. I think I could see him rising up a little bit more, but we'll see how that plays out. But that's the end of talking about players for the night. Let's get a little bit more of the fun part of the show. Let's start off with the question of the week. Now, Chris, I know Scott's the video game guy, but do you know what that's from?
I don't know what that is specifically.
Can I guess?
I know what you know. So I think we're close-ish in age. I'm 29. I don't think you're that much older than me.
I'm 32, yeah.
Yeah. So think of N64. Think of game.
I know it. Yep.
I didn't play a lot of N64. My first system actually, besides Game Boy, was a Dreamcast. So I was a bit of a late adopter.
Oh man.
I didn't get into the 128-bit era, I guess.
So you never played that's from Yoshi's Story.
I never played that one on 64. I've played the whatever the one on SNES was, Yoshi's Island, but I've never played the
that's another good game.
one. I like that one, yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know there was a Yoshi's Island, so I'm learning a lot of new things today.
I think there were 2 on the SNES. I think you can play them on the Switch. At least one of them.
Oh, wow. Well, our question of the week is sponsored by Shady Rays. And Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Shady Rays?
All right, so fellas, we're all on Twitter, and we have to deal with some hate sometimes. And how do you block out those haters?
Oh, he's going to get ugly. There you go.
Well, David is one of my haters, and you put on Shady Rays, and not only are they good for blocking out the haters, they're good for protecting your eyes, for looking cool, for looking fashionable, maybe not in David's eyes, but also you do good. Because when you buy a pair of Shady Rays, they donate 10 meals to Feeding America. Now, when we first started saying this, it was at 13 million. It's probably at 15 million. Maybe that's being generous. Probably 200 million. And you know how you can contribute? You use code TRIPLEPLAY at checkout to get 25% off your order. This excludes the RX series, but help the environment. Use code TRIPLEPLAY and get yourself some Shady Rays to block out the haters, like David.
There we go. All right. Well, going from your ugly ad to the question of the week here.
I think it was nice.
Thank you.
Who is the best switch hitter of all time? So it's a very loaded question. I know there's a lot of great options. Chris, you're the guest. Who are you going with for the answer for this question?
I think it's got to be Mickey Mantle. He is, one of probably the 5 best hitters, period, in Major League history. You look at the splits. I mean, he was a better hitter from the right-hand side, 1,000 OPS, but 965 against right-handed pitching. He's just kind of overlooked, I think, because his career overlapped with Willie Mays, who was a better overall player, but offensively, those two were very similar. And you look at Mickey Mantle, led the American League in OPS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, including 5 times in a row from 1958 to 1962. Was better than Roger Maris the year Roger Maris won consecutive MVPs, I believe. And, Mickey Mantle was the better player both seasons. It's one of those situations where if we actually just gave if you went back and gave MVP to the best player in baseball or the best player in their respective leagues, there would be like 7 players ever who actually won an MVP, because it would be like Mickey Mantle would have like 8 of them, and Willie Mays would have 12, and Barry Bonds would have 11, and Mike Schmidt would probably have 6, and it would just be, we got to spread them around. But Mickey Mantle, on the short list of best hitters ever, best switch hitter ever.
Maris had 0 intentional walks in 61, so that's interesting. What about you, Doc? Who's your answer here?
All right, so I looked at Mickey Mantle's stats. His 1956 season, he had 353 with 52 homers and 130 RBIs. That's crazy.
Yeah,
but for me,
unbelievable.
For me, it's Chipper Jones, and I actually look at his performance from both sides because he hit 304 from each side of the plate. He had a career 401 on-base percentage. He was an MVP. After age 23, he played 100-plus games in 17 out of the 18 seasons. He has more walks in his career, 1,512, than strikeouts, 1,409. So maybe not having the stats that Mickey Mantle did, but in the true terms of switch hitter being effective from both sides, I think it's him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong either one. I think they're probably both on the top 10 all time.
They're in the top 3.
They're both in the top 3.
I looked at like 5 lists, and all of them were both of them in the top 3.
Basically, those two and Eddie Murray is pretty much the top 3.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Elsie, are you going Eddie Murray for the trifecta?
No, I mean, I think it's Mantle. I think when Mantle, first of all, little bit of just dropped news. The 1952 Mantle Topps card 4 days ago sold for a record $1.6 million.
Wow.
If anyone has one of those hanging around their house, hold on to it. It could be worth something someday.
Give us a triple play fantasy.
Yeah. It's interesting. When Mantle retired, he retired with the most strikeouts of all time, 1,710. It's since been crushed by Reggie Jackson. But he also has 1,733 walks. He also has more walks than strikeouts. He has a triple crown to his name. He was a true 5-tool player. I don't know exactly the mechanisms of it, but some point in 1952 or 1953, he injured his knee because there was like a drainage pipe in Yankee Stadium.
Head or something. Yeah.
That he tripped on, and he was never the same runner after that. He was actually the fastest person down the first baseline when he was a rookie. So he would have been like a 300 player, or, well, they didn't steal as much in the 50s as they did in later years. He would have been that 100, 200 steal career if he hadn't happened to him. Truly one of the best athletes of all time, one of the best hitters of all time, and like Chris said, he was a natural righty. His dad was a big baseball fan. He's named after Mickey Cochran, actually, the Detroit Tigers Hall of Fame catcher from the 30s, and his dad taught him to hit switch hit, and there's so much fun.
My God, are you still talking?
I was waiting for you to do that. I'm going to mute myself.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I am still talking. Listen. I know you're riveted over there, and I'm going to keep going because I worked up ahead of steam, and I was working to a conclusion, and now I've lost it. So I just got to fill until I get back to my spot. I think that's.
I'm
what's gonna
trying to
happen.
make sure that Chris isn't a whole year older by the time you're done.
No, but yeah, the Mick. No one else is close.
Art, I
Alright.
feel like you.
He had so many stupid seasons, just like 220, 221 OPS plus in 1957, 365 average, 512 on base percentage, and somehow didn't lead the American League in on base percentage that year. That is ridiculous because Ted Williams was still around.
That's nuts. I feel like I wish I watched more baseball in that time. Like you can look at the statistics, but I feel like it was such a golden age that a lot of us didn't get a chance to watch. It's just incredible. My dad's favorite player is Mickey Mantle. So he always just tells me a bunch of stories about Mickey Mantle. So that was my pick as well.
The way your dad talks about his favorite baseball player, you never see, like my dad was Roberto Clemente, who, he's my favorite, probably my favorite athlete ever. And just, the way, maybe when I'm, in my 40s, I'll talk about, Barry Bonds and Gary Sheffield that way.
Mm-hmm.
But, you do feel like you missed something a little bit, not being able to watch those guys play.
100%. I just wish there was a lot more film you could watch too, like just normal game film. But great answers all around. And with that being said, let's move to our last segment of the night, and that's going to be our game of the week. I know you know that one, Chris.
I think they just recently added that to the songs you can listen to when you're driving in a car in Call of Duty Warzone. And,
really?
It's
That's
really they added like a couple of 80s pop songs, and it's really changed the game. It's really made things step up a little bit.
Oh man, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Anytime I hear that song comes on, my mood automatically perks up.
Makes you want to murder people.
Oh wow, this took a dark turn.
Well, in the game, duh.
In the game.
Okay.
Man, come on.
Doc, get your head out of the gutter. All right, so Doc, we're gonna stay with you because it's the game of the week time. You're hosting this week, so what are we playing?
All right, so journeyman is a term that's thrown out for veterans that have kind of made their way around, and that's going to be the name of this game. So I have 5 players. I'm going to give you the teams they played for. It's your job to give me the order of which team they played for. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the player and then all the teams they played for. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and you're going to then tell me. So we're going to start with Chris, then David, then Art, and then we'll rotate. We have 5, and then I have a 6 bonus one. Sound good?
All right.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll wait for you guys to make sure you have everything written down. The first player is Todd Frazier. The teams he's played on is the Mets, 2 stints, so there's going to be 2 Mets answers. Yankees, Reds, White Sox, and Rangers. Let me know when you guys have it all written down, and 30 seconds will start.
I'm good.
I'm ready. You guys all good?
It was 5 teams.
There were 5 different teams, but he's played for the Mets twice, so it's going to be 6 total points.
All right.
Ready?
All
right, go.
Good thing the power of editing will cut this dead time out.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. You got to get the Mets in there twice.
Yep. 15 seconds gone by. I apologize to anyone watching this live.
It's like a library.
Mm-hmm.
The setting
5
of
seconds.
another great
4,
80s music
3,
video. A
2,
library.
1. All right, time's up. Chris, let's hear your order.
Okay. I'm White Sox, Reds, Mets.
Hold on, wait. You said White Sox, Reds, Mets.
Yankees. No, I'm going Mets, White Sox, Reds, Yankees, Rangers. No.
All right.
Mets, White Sox, Reds, Mets, Yankees, Rangers.
So Mets, White Sox, Reds. Let me hear the last one.
Mets, Yankees, Rangers.
Okay. David?
I'm going Mets, Reds, Yankees, White Sox, Rangers, Mets.
Okay. And Art?
Reds, Mets, White Sox, Yankees, Mets, Rangers.
All right. Well, after one, David leads with 3, Chris with 2, and Art with 1. I feel like I should give Chris 0 for how many times he stumbled. The correct order is Reds, White Sox, Yankees, Mets, Rangers, Mets once again.
Okay.
So
All
number
right.
2, and we're starting with David. It's Kurt Suzuki. And a total of 6 points. He's played 2 stints with the Nationals, 2 stints with the Athletics, the Braves, and the Twins. Let me know when you guys all have that written down, and 30 seconds will go on the clock.
It's been that many. He had 2 stints with 2 separate teams. Who does that?
Yep. You guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. 30 seconds starting. Shady, shady, shady rays. Shady rays, baby. They block your eyes so vision doesn't go away.
Your bad singing is going to make me not concentrate.
Good. I want you to blow the lead. 20 seconds has gone by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, David, you're first.
I actually think I got this one.
Okay.
I think it's Athletics, Braves, Nats, Twins, Nats, Athletics.
Okay. Art.
2 times with the Nats. Oh gosh. A's, Twins, Nats, Braves, Nats, A's.
Okay. And Chris.
A's, Nats, A's, Braves, Nats, Twins.
All right. Well, Chris led this one with 3. David had 2, and Art had 1. Art, you're usually not that bad at these games. The order was.
I think you're wrong. That's why. I think you're just messing up.
It's Athletics, Nats, Athletics, Twins, Braves, back with the Nats again. So David and Chris both have 5, and Art with 2. All right.
This is tough.
It
It
is.
is tough. It is tough. All right. The next one, and I'm going to give you guys 40 seconds. It's Francisco Liriano. Funny we talked about
Oh
him
my
today.
God. This is going to be like half the
What are
league.
there, like
No.
16
Okay.
teams?
So I'm not counting the Blue Jays with this stint because he hasn't pitched a game for them. But he has 2 stints with the Pirates, the Astros, the Twins, the Tigers, his first stint with the Blue Jays, and the White Sox. And I'm going to give you
No, can you repeat that again?
yeah. So the Pirates, 2 stints,
Yeah.
the Astros,
Yeah.
the Twins,
Uh-huh.
the Tigers, the Blue Jays, and the White Sox. And since it's 7 points, I'm going to give you 40 seconds starting now.
I'll play this. No, too distracting.
Take on me. Take on
Please
me.
don't sing.
Okay. I'm just trying to get you to lose the lead. Robbie Ray does need Shady Rays. Maybe he should sponsor them. 20 seconds has passed, gentlemen.
Already? Jesus.
Yep. Four, 3, 2, 1. All right, Art. We're starting with you. Let's hear it.
Twins, Pirates, Blue Jays, Pirates, White Sox, Astros, Tigers.
Okay. Chris?
Twins, Pirates, Astros, Pirates, Blue Jays, White Sox, Tigers.
Okay. And David?
Twins, White Sox, Pirates, Astros, Blue Jays, Tigers, Pirates.
Wow. David, you got 5.
Wow.
I mean,
order.
I'm a
order-
big Twins fan, so I knew that I knew his first couple.
So Chris and Art, you guys only got 1, and it was the Twins to start. He went Twins, White Sox, Pirates, Blue Jays, Astros, Tigers, Pirates once again. So David with 10, Chris with 6, and Art with 3. We have 2 left, and we are going to start with this one with Chris.
My comeback.
And it's J.A. Happ. He has 7 points. and there's 6 teams. So he's played for the Pirates, the Astros, 2 stints with the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Mariners, and the Phillies. We're not counting the Twins because he hasn't pitched for them yet.
All right, can you do that one more time, please?
Sure. The Pirates,
Yeah,
the Astros, 2 stints with the Blue Jays,
yeah.
the Yankees, the Mariners, and the Phillies. So since there's
Remember him
7,
with the Mariners.
so since there's 7 points, I'll give you 40 seconds once again.
All right.
I gotta be honest. Okay, no, I know.
Chris, you're in second place. I don't want you throwing in that towel.
I'm honestly I'm struggling with the 2020 teams. It just is like such a blur in my brain that I just like it's really bad.
5 seconds left.
I just have to get enough of them where I can keep a healthy lead.
All right, time is up. Chris, we're starting with you. Let's hear that order.
All right. Phillies. Phillies, Mariners, Blue Jays, Pirates, Blue Jays, Yankees. I think that was the correct amount, right?
No, you left out one.
Did you do 2 Blue Jays? Because I think there were 2 Blue Jays stints.
There are 2 Blue Jays. You left out the Astros.
Oh, okay. All right. Astros, Phillies, Pirates, Mariners, Blue Jays. No. I didn't do 2 Blue Jays again.
I'm going to just combine.
This is real bad.
You got both right the same amount. I'll tell you which ones you got right at the end.
All right.
David, let's hear your order.
All right. If I beat Chris Towers, I'm putting it on my resume.
I mean, it's not saying much right now.
Yeah, people listen to it back though. But all right, so I have the Phillies, the Blue Jays, the Pirates, the Mariners, the Astros, the Blue Jays, and the Yankees.
Okay. And Art.
I just have no recollection of him being with the Mariners at all.
Same.
Yeah. No.
So I'm going to say Mariners, Phillies, Blue Jays, Astros, Pirates, Blue Jays, Yankees.
All right. Well, David got 4, Art got 3, and Chris got 2. The correct order is Phillies, Astros, Blue Jays, Mariners, Pirates, Blue Jays once again, and Yankees. David is 14. Chris has 8, and Art has 7, or Art has 6. So I had 1 left, but you guys can't win. It's Charlie Morton who had 5. So
Let's do the last one with Charlie Morton just for
There's a lot of overlap on some of these guys.
Yeah.
All right. So Charlie Morton, his 5 teams, not including his second stint with the Braves: Rays, Astros, Phillies, Braves, and Pirates. And since there's 5 teams, I'm going to put 25 seconds. You guys all ready?
You're a stickler.
Could you say that again?
Astros
You said
twice, right?
No. Rays, Astros, Phillies, Braves, and Pirates.
Astros, Phillies.
And who was twice?
I was saying he's technically on his second stint with the Braves now, but I'm not bringing it up because he hasn't pitched yet.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
15 seconds.
You are such a stickler.
David, shut up. You won the game. 5.
I have this one,
4,
I think, completely right.
3, 2, 1. All right, David, you're starting, so let's hear your order.
I'm pretty sure he was in MVP baseball 2005, and I remember seeing him on the Pirates there. So I think it's Pirates, Phillies, Astros, Rays, Braves.
Okay. Chris?
Pirates, Phillies, Braves, Astros, Rays.
Oh, that's right, because I forgot. I'm thinking of the last stint.
Okay. And Art.
I think that you said he started with the Braves when we were talking about Morton in our pitching talk. So I'm going to say,
wow.
Braves, Pirates, Phillies, Astros, Rays.
Art, you're a great listener. I was wondering if anybody was going to pick up on
There
that
you go.
nugget. Art, you cleaned up that category. Way to redeem yourself, Dave. You actually got 0 on that.
I got 0.
Yeah. So Art technically
He didn't win.
he didn't win, but he made it close.
Sure. You didn't. I finished last.
You did finish last, Chris.
That's all right. That's all right.
Hey, you know what?
I'm not known for my ability to remember things. So. I did remember J-Hap was involved in the Roy Oswalt trade. So
that is true.
Got that stored in my head somehow. I just couldn't remember which way it went. Although, yeah.
Well, the crowd cheered. The rightful victor took the spoils. I'm going to take my 15-second FaceTime, and I'm going to give that to you, Chris, because we truly appreciate you coming on the show tonight, and it was a lot of fun to be able to talk pitching with you.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's fun. I'm on a little vacation, so I'm actually not on the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast this week. So this is my only podcast appearance this week is for you guys.
Oh man, I makes us feel special, man. I really appreciate it because I mean I know how much of a grind you guys do. Talking with Frank some and talking with some other guys, I know you guys grind really hard, and for you to take your week off to come on and pod with us, it really means a lot to us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
In case people have been living under a rock, can you tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter, any work that you might have coming out soon, or any other projects you might be doing or anything like that?
Yeah, I tweet too much at C Tower CBS, occasionally about baseball, mostly about animals and Star Wars and Carly Rae Jepsen. And cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball. You know, I've got a lot of baseball stuff coming up. We're ramping up for the season. We'll have position previews on next week. Fantasy Baseball Today podcast. If you're into Fantasy Football Today newsletter is kind of my biggest priority over the course of the year. That'll get sent into your inbox every single day from July to January. So, head over to cbssports.com/newsletters and sign up for that. That'll help me keep my job, actually. That one specifically.
I'm glad.
Subscribe.
We're going to put emphasis on that one, or maybe you can even add a flair effect to that. But yeah, this man truly so much baseball knowledge, such a great follow, and he's a great part of just the fantasy community in general, interacts with a lot of people, great musical takes too. Even I don't know half the stuff he talks about music wise, but it's awesome. It's an awesome follow. So make sure you're following him if you're not already. Or
I just said thank you.
Yeah.
I was trying to be nice.
Next week, we're going to finish out starting pitchers, looking at the starting pitchers ranked 61 to 100 with Dave Swan from Pitcher List and Fantrax HQ. So make sure not to miss that episode. Until then, everyone stay safe. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Make sure you root for the Chiefs. And we'll catch you all on the flip. So see y'all next week.
Chris, don't forget to feed the cats.